Hello and welcome to the Culture Swally, a podcast dedicated to Scottish news and pop culture. My name is Nicky, and as always, I'm joined by Greg. How are you today, Greg?
Very well indeed. You might, when you listen to my audio, you might hear me say a second ago, "Oh, what's going on?" Because my internet, for some reason, jumped over, but it's all back on now, so so all is well. What have you been up?
Fantastic.
What have you been up to?
I've been researching this podcast, basically, gone down a rabbit hole of that. I actually found the original pilot episode that we recorded for this podcast about 2 years ago, and then we ditched it for quite a while, and we reviewed what we're going to be reviewing today. Listening back to it, oh yeah, that was tough, but it was good. And I completely forgot that I found it very amusing to say, and I'm joined by my co-host, Greg. Glad I ditched that.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that time when I was your co-host.
Yeah, glad we ditched that, I think. So, no, not been up to a huge amount this week, to be perfectly honest. I've been watching a bit of TV, actually. Been devouring Your Honour with Bryan Cranston, which is fantastic. And although it's not Scottish, of course, but it does include Tony Curran.
Oh, that's right.
He has quite a big role in it as well. Yeah. So it's been good. It's very good. And playing a Scottish hard man, as you would expect. At least he's not an alcoholic.
Well, I was at. I've been down a bit of a Trainspotting rabbit hole as well. But I went to last night. My daughter was making her, not her stage debut, because she's done a bit of dancing on stage before when we lived in Scotland, but her Middle East stage debut. She's joined the school, and the routine she was doing was to sort of familiar sounding, but I'm not sure what, R&B song, her and some other kids, so we're doing like some body popping and stuff like that. But the opening number for the show, the show was only half an hour, which, you know, like I know you're not a parent, but any other parents who are listening to the podcast will agree that children's shows shouldn't be any longer than half an hour, because, you know what I mean, right? Half an hour is just the right amount of time. But the opening number was some older kids, and they were singing. They weren't dancing, they were singing. And I think they must have been about 14 or 15. The girl who started singing, and she sang like the first verse of the song. Very nice voice, very confident. As soon as her, I guess, opening verse was over, she fainted. Wow. She went down like a ton of bricks. And all the other kids sort of kept going for a couple of seconds before realising that, and then the music stopped, and she was kind of brought off stage, and so the show had to restart. And the lady who owns the dance school came out and assured us that the wee girl was fine. Apparently said it's not uncommon for her to faint, apparently. And I'm thinking, well, that can't be a good sign, you know. She said apparently she faints quite a lot when they're rehearsing. But yeah, it was a bit like, I've never seen anybody faint, you know. I've seen people like pass out standing up because they've had too much to drink or whatever, but I never seen anybody just kind of go into a dead faint, you know. So, and my daughter was a little bit nervous about going on anyway, but then when she saw an older girl being sort of stretchered off the stage, she was her nerves were a bit shot. But she went on and she did her show, and she did really well. To be fair to her, she did really, really well. We're very proud of her. But yeah, that was our Friday. Sorry, today's Saturday. So shall we have a look at what's been going on in Scotland before we get into the review?
Yeah, let's have a look at the news.
Hello, this is the Outer Hebrides Broadcasting Corporation, and here is what's been going on in the news.
What have you seen this week in Scotland that has caught your eye?
Well, once again, the Falkirk Herald did not let me down when I was looking for some more sort of unusual off-the-wall news. The headline reads, Denny offender lost the plot with her guitar-strumming, video game-playing partner. Roseanne, who gets called Rosie McCourtney, 30 years old, had just had enough of her partner playing his guitar and playing video games and threw items around the house, which led to him seeking shelter in a bedroom. The matter only came to the attention of the police when he phoned his gran, and she called the police in. McCourtney appeared at Falkirk Sheriff Court last Thursday, having pleaded guilty to threatening behaviour at her 50 Overton Crescent Denny home. I've never understood why local newspapers feel the need to print like the full address, even her door number. You know, they stopped just short of putting her postcode in there. Procurator Fiscal Depute Heather Galbraith said, the witness was within the address when the accused... The witness was within the address with the accused. It was 7 p.m. and she was in a bad mood, acting in an aggressive manner, shouting, "Dinna play that guitar," and "You're not playing Dirt Valley," which thankfully they have said is a video game and not some sort of bedroom activity. The accused then threw some things around within the address, and the witness retreated into a bedroom. He contacted his grandmother, who phoned the police. The accused was later traced at the address and arrested. The court heard the couple had been together since they were both 16. So Rosie's 30, as they told us that earlier on. So she's been with this guy for 14 years. Martin Morrow, defence solicitor. I think we've seen Martin Morrow's name before in other stories that have come from the kind of Falkirk area.
It does ring a bell,
It does ring a bell, doesn't it? Martin Morrow said he was playing his guitar and his video games, and it just got too much for her. It got too much for her that night. The witness never wanted this to come to court. Sheriff Derek Livingston responded, "The moral of the story is don't tell your grandmother if you have an argument with your partner." He placed McCourtney on a 6-month structured deferred sentence until September the 2nd for her to try and be of good behaviour in that time, and he made it a condition that she attend alcohol counselling. So obviously Rosie's boyfriend is just not paying enough attention to her. He's paying...
This has got to be born out of lockdown frustration and boredom and just being confined with one other person for so long.
Maybe,
but you think if they've been together for 14 years, used to it. But I can imagine it would be quite annoying if he's playing Wonderwall all the time. In fact, I have a neighbour, and I don't know which neighbour it is, but every Tuesday and Thursday in the morning, they play the piano, and he only knows one song, and it's Lionel Richie, Once, Twice, Three Times a Lady. And I'll be honest, he's getting better. As the last year has progressed, he is getting better. When we first heard him, it was very, the keys were a little bit out of place and his singing wasn't great. Now he is knocking that tune out. But
so he sings along as well. He's playing.
Oh yeah, he sings along. Yeah, he sings along. Yeah,
good for him.
Yeah, I mean, initially it was just the chorus he would say over and over again, but now he does branch out into the whole song. But yeah, good for him. But maybe Rosie just got fed up of her boyfriend playing Smoke on the Water or Wonderwall, and she's feeling a bit neglected and wants him to play with her dirt road.
Her Dirt Valley.
Is it Dirt Valley? Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. There's a moral there. Maybe there's more. There's more than just the moral that the sheriff said about not calling your granny if you get into a row. Anyway, what's your story?
Well, speaking of grandmothers, this article, which is from the Daily Record this week, involves Boots. Now, Boots, I would say Boots the chemist, but it's Boots the high street store. They've had to apologise after an inappropriate advert urged Scots to treat mums to sex toys for Mother's Day. So, the gist of the story is that this stunned retired prison officer, Andrew Whitening from Fife, was scrolling through his Facebook newsfeed, and he had to do a double take at the Boots advert, which featured 4 colourful vibrators of various shapes and sizes below the slogan, "For every kind of mum." The 53-year-old says he found the campaign extremely inappropriate, but he couldn't help but laugh at the racy marketing fail. Boots have had to apologise and for any offence caused, and said that it was a technical error, which meant that 2 separate adverts were combined into one. Andrew said, maybe some mothers are in for a shock on Mother's Day. I spotted it on Facebook, and I did a double take. I couldn't believe what I saw, but then I laughed. It was quite funny. But then I saw the little girl in the picture, and I thought, that's a little bit inappropriate, especially when this advert is going out to users on Facebook in the UK. So, Andrew, are you saying there that it would be okay if it was another country? So it's okay if it's Cambodia or Vietnam or somewhere, but it's inappropriate for the UK. I don't know. Andrew's pretty broad-minded, though, and he does like a laugh, so he found it funny. And he didn't even realise Boots had sold that sort of thing. Maybe they've had to branch out during the lockdown. The full advert read, are you looking for the perfect gift for your miles away mum? Or your near but far mum? Wherever she is, we've got something she'll love. Underneath it, there's an image of a toddler holding hands with her parent and longingly looking through a glass door at her grandmother. And below is a lineup of some very strange-looking sex aids. There was quite a few comments to say that this was disgusting, and people have said there could be young kids who are now going to go to their mums and saying, Mummy, what's this? Or can you imagine the child going to their dad and saying, Dad, can we get one of these for Mum for Mother's Day?
I want her to think about us every time she uses it.
Andrew said, I know that they all come in all shapes and sizes, but I just looked at the photo again and they look quite weird. I think flowers would be sufficient. This is quite inappropriate. Boots have apologised and said, we're really sorry for any offence caused. It was a complete mistake with two separate adverts combined. We've put measures in place to ensure this doesn't happen again and apologise for any inconvenience caused. So, for fuck's sake, now it's just started hail the window.
I thought maybe you had found I thought when you turned one of these vibrators on, you're going to give us a demonstration.
No, it started hailing outside now against the window. Fantastic. So that's Boots with their special Mother's Day gift. It's, hey, these mistakes happen, and it's pretty funny. I don't know, I wouldn't get into a massive outrage about it or say it's wholly inappropriate. Kids shouldn't be looking at Facebook anyway. I'm sure they're not supposed to be on there, so they shouldn't be seeing the advert. But I do love the thought of one of them seeing it and running up and saying, Dad, I know what we can get Mum for Mother's Day. Can we chuck in a couple of love eggs as well, please?
I just saw the perfect gift on Facebook. I'm quite surprised to hear that Boots are selling like vibrators and things, because like vibrators were always it was always either Ann Summers, you know, like Mum would come home with like a Ann Summers catalogue or something that you could have a look at when there was nobody in. And like you would see them like in sex shop windows when you went abroad to Europe. I mean, now that I can't believe that Boots are selling them.
Don't get me wrong, they're not selling like double intruder black mambas or anything. It's small, discreet kind of ones that you could just easily slip into your purse.
Right.
So there you go. If you're in the market for that kind of thing, or you're looking for the perfect gift, Boots, they'll sort you out.
Yeah.
What else have you seen this week, Greg?
Well, I get nothing that tops that. The story I found is a bit of an unusual one. It's about the late Sir Sean Connery, or Big Tam, as we sometimes affectionately refer to him as. It's from the Daily Record, and the headline reads: Sir Sean Connery filmed scenes wearing only pants if his legs weren't in the shot. Sir Sean, who died last year at the age of 90, only put his breeks on for full-length shots, and never wore them when he was filming in cars. So there's a picture of Sean when he was a much younger man, I think in his James Bond days, lounging on a sun lounger in a pair of swimming trunks. So the source of this story is none other than actor Wesley Snipes. He has revealed how the Bond legend, Sir Sean, used to shoot movies wearing just his pants. The 58-year-old movie star, best known for playing vampire hunter Blade, as well as starring in White Men Can't Jump, said how he did the same as the Dr. No icon. Snipes claimed, so I love the terminology by the Scottish reporter, Snipes claims that while working with Sir Sean on the 1993 crime movie Rising Sun, he realised that the actor didn't wear trousers on set. Sir Sean, who died last year, only put his breeks on for the full-length shots and never wore them filming in cars because nobody could see what he was wearing on his bottom half. The Blade star said, "When we were in the car scenes, I was fully costumed. He came in with just a jacket, tie and a shirt. That was it. And boxer shorts and slippers. I'm sitting there thinking, should I say something? Mr. Connery doesn't have his pants." And the reporters put in brackets, trousers, so in case there's any confusion. "Mr. Connery doesn't have his pants on." He added, "We filmed the whole scene," and then he leaned over and he says, "Why are you dressed in all your suit?" And I was like, although, see, when I was reading that, I was like, my voice went, as like, in my mind, as like, because I had to do a scene, and he said, "No, son, you don't need your pants," brackets, trousers. "Why do you need your pants," bracket, trousers, "if the camera's up there?" Snipes added, "I was like, wow," and a light went off in my head. And since then, whenever you see me in a car, unless I have to get out, I'm in my boxer shorts. The Blade star said he only got into acting because he wanted to hang around dancers in leotards. The actor said, "When I was 15, I went to the High School of Performing Arts, the Fame School, in Midtown Broadway in New York City. When I went there on audition and saw all the dancers, the female dancers who were auditioning too, takes care to mention that, the female dancers who were auditioning too, I knew this was absolutely the career for me. I've never looked back. It's the dancers in the leotards that really motivated me." So that's quite yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know he's in I guess Wesley Snipes is in the Coming to America sequel. Apparently he's very good in it. I've not watched it yet. I might try and talk Mrs. Hurst into watching it this evening. You watched it. Is it any good?
Wesley Snipes is probably the best part of the film.
I heard that, yeah.
Or the second best part. It's between Wesley Snipes and all the flashback scenes where they show the first film.
Right.
They're the two best parts of the film.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Right.
It's worth a watch. But
yeah.
Do you think Wesley used to do that when he was in prison? He used to rock about in just his pants.
It's like
when he was sitting down for lunch saying, "I'm not being filmed above the waist," whilst he's in the canteen.
On the security cameras, you know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I forgot. He went to jail for not paying his taxes, right? Is that right?
Yeah, tax evasion, yeah. That's a great story. I love the thought of that, of him sitting there and then Sean Connery coming into the car with just a pair of stained Y-fronts and his baffies. And Snipes looking at him. "What the fuck are you doing?" And he's like,
Big Sam's like, "What the fuck are you doing? Camera's up there." Maybe it's because I know that when he became very successful, Sean, he lived like Barbados and hot places in Spain and things like that, right? So maybe it was just like all the time that he wasn't making films, like all his downtime and he wasn't shooting a movie, he would just be like, it's probably just like playing golf and being somewhere sort of luxurious, nice warm weather. He probably just got to a stage where he was like, "Fucking not wearing trousers if I don't have to. Fuck that." You know what I mean? Anyway, it's a shame we didn't have that story. That story would have gone nicely in our Sean Connery tribute episode from November, which is still available if you want to check it out.
Nice plug, yes.
So, I think you've got a celebrity story for us as well this week, haven't you?
I do, yes. It is about, as he's described, comic book tycoon Mark Millar. So, of course, if you're familiar with Mark Millar, very famous comic book creator, and wrote a lot of amazing storylines for different comic books. He was rummaging around in his cellar and he found a 9-year-old can of Irn Bru and downed it. He was absolutely delighted to discover a batch of original recipe Irn Bru after revealing he had to stop drinking it when the recipe changed. The creator of movies Kick-Ass and Kingsman turned his back on Scotland's other national drink following the change made 3 years ago. So there was a massive outcry at the time, I remember. Yeah. Irn Bru tweaked the recipe slightly and just reduced the sugar content. Mark said he was left heartbroken, having to ditch his 3-can-a-day habit. Now, I'm sorry, I like Irn Bru. I've got a can right next to me now, but I couldn't drink 3 cans in a day. That's a little bit too much.
No, I don't think I could drink 3 cans in a week.
No, I think I have I think I bought a 24 pack about 4 months ago, and I've got 3 cans left. So, but Mark found 23 cans in his cellar when he was cleaning it out. And he tweeted to his followers, "I've just found these. They're 9 years old. Do I still drink them?" Obviously, Twitter encouraged him. And like, yeah, do it. So he said, right, I'm going to drink it. I'll let you know how it goes. So he replied then, "I've just drunk one. It tasted like water with large metal grains, but I persisted and I finished it. After all, it was 9 years old." He'd spoken about his devastation when the recipe changed, saying, "The new formula murdered Irn Bru. I used to drink 3 cans a day for my whole life, and now I never touch it. It happened so gradually, but I haven't bought it in ages. It breaks my heart. The only winners here are dentists and cardiologists." So they changed the formula of Irn Bru. It was response to sugar tax introduced by the UK government. Mm-hmm. So that was the main reason that they actually reduced it. And apparently, fans were massively in uproar about this. But Irn Bru have said that they've stuck to the same kind of essence recipe. I'll be honest, I didn't really notice a massive difference.
I didn't.
When I tried the new Irn Bru.
I'm right there with you. I didn't notice a difference at all. And then when I was home, I went home for Christmas, 2019, and I'd seen in the kind of weeks leading up to Christmas that bars had released a sort of special edition glass bottle 1910 recipe. So I asked my sister to get me a bottle, because apparently they were a limited edition. They were selling fast, and it was like the sort of classic, I don't know, it was maybe like a litre bottle, or maybe a litre and a half, whatever. And so I had it when I was at home, and I didn't really notice much of a difference. I mean, maybe if I tried it side by side with like the normal stuff, but it just tasted like it always has to me. So
would you drink a 9-year-old can of Irn Bru?
What the fuck? Definitely, no chance. I mean, to be honest, I'm quite surprised that he has. I thought he'd have known better. I mean, it's essentially like all fizzy drinks. I think are essentially just sugar and water and flavouring. So probably, I don't know if a 9-year-old can of fizzy juice is potentially going to do you any harm. Is there any kind of follow-up story? Has he been admitted to hospital or on his stomach?
No, nothing like that. No, I think he's been okay. He's escaped unscathed. Just probably a bit of a metallic-y, shitey taste in his mouth.
Well, any more stories for us? I think you've got one more, haven't you?
I've got one more. It's a very small one, and it'll probably be old news by the time this comes out. But, of course, at the weekend, Glasgow Rangers celebrated their first ever title. So congratulations, Rangers. It's lovely to see Scotland's newest club winning a trophy so quickly. And the fans gathered in George Square and outside Ibrox to celebrate, and it was all in the news. There was massive, destruction caused, and they were celebrating. They were having a party. That's okay. One guy was really enjoying himself, and because a man has been arrested for performing a sex act on himself outside Ibrox at the weekend. Police confirmed a man aged 46 had been arrested and charged, and is due to appear in court. Now, it doesn't go into detail in this article, but I have seen the video. And as people are celebrating around behind him, it's carnage, everyone's enjoying themselves, and whoever's filming with their mobile phone just pans round, and here's this fat 46-year-old guy with a Rangers top on, his tracky bottoms waistband pulled down below his balls, and he is going hammer and tongs, having a wank. Have you ever been so excited at a sporting event or anything that you've thought, maybe when I was like 15 or something, you get strangely aroused at strange things, but he's 46. What the fuck?
I think the most exotic thing I've ever banged one out to, and again when I was like a teenager, was probably the lunchtime episode of Neighbours. Even
Mrs. Mangle.
But yeah, no, I mean there was a bit of a skill to it, which a carefully developed skill.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's been honing this skill for a long time. Unfortunately for him, as I say, this photo and video have gone viral, so everyone's now seen his face. So he's going to be known. He's probably going to be proud of it, to be honest, isn't he? Would you? I don't know. If you're going to do something like that, you've got to have very little shame.
Or be mentally ill, perhaps, or something, I don't know.
I don't want to cast aspersions on that. I mean, he maybe was very drunk, but then again, if you're very drunk as a 46-year-old man and slightly overweight, I'd say morbidly obese, would you be able to get up? And it's going to be cold at night in Glasgow in March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Fucking hell.
I just love the thought of, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I could burst. I've got to rip the heat off it. Anyway, so be safe, kids. So yeah, that concludes my news stories for the week. What about yourself? Anything else?
No, I don't have any.
No.
More stories.
Hey, I think we've done okay this week. We've had a guitar playing Dirt Valley fiend. We've had Boots vibrators, Sean Connery, Mark Miller, and Ibrox Wanker. I think we've kept it quite good this week in terms of the news stories.
Yeah, no, it's been good.
I'm looking forward to writing the description for this episode.
Yeah. Okay, I'm looking forward to doing the social media.
Right. Okay, well, shall we delve into a review? And it was your choice this week, Greg, and I cannot wait.
Okay, well, we kind of gave the game away earlier on, but this week we're going to be talking about Danny Boyle's 1996 movie Trainspotting, based on the book by Irvine Welsh. And I think for all of us, there's a movie or a book or something that just comes along at the right time in our lives. It captures our imagination. And for me, you know, when this came out, I was 17 years old. I was in my last year at school. I had recently read the book, like maybe a few months before the movie came out. I saw it at the cinema, and I've never stopped. I've never stopped going back to it. So the movie is it's about Mark Renton, played by Ewan McGregor, and his friends, most of which are heroin addicts. And in a series of sort of vignettes, it tells how they try to give up heroin, how they get back on heroin, how their interaction between each other, their interaction with other people, their friendships, relationships with other people, and really sort of shows the lifestyle that heroin users would have had, which would have been a surprise, I think, to most people who have never lived in that world. But yeah, it's just, and even now, the reason I chose the film is because it's its 25th anniversary this year. I'm sure there'll be a lot of stuff on I know Empire's done a feature already, Empire magazine, and I thought it's just the right time to talk about it. So, I know obviously what one of the things that you and I have in common is our love of Irvine Welsh's books, and particularly this movie. So, what's your first kind of memories? How did you encounter Trainspotting? How did you come across it?
I was too young to go and see it at the cinema because I was 15 when it came out. In fact, I would have been 14 when it first came out. I believe it came out 23rd of February.
Yeah.
Or around about then, yeah. So my birthday is 27, so I would have been 14 turning 15. So obviously there was no chance I was going to be getting into the cinema to see this. So I had to wait for it to come out on VHS. I actually got it for Christmas that year. So do you remember at that time, it seemed to happen quite a lot. You would get VHS box sets. Mm-hmm. So I had a Reservoir Dogs one that came with a couple of pin badges and a Zippo lighter and Joe Cabot's little black book. And I think I had an Alien 3 one that came with a watch. So I got the Trainspotting one for Christmas, and it came with, I think, a pair of John Lennon style orange tinted sunglasses and a lighter. It wasn't like a Zippo lighter, but it was the same kind of style-ish without the lid. And it was orange with Trainspotting on the front. And a chrome king-size Rizla holder with Trainspotting embossed on the front. All useful items, you know, at that age that you can do with.
What every 15-year-old boy wants for Christmas.
Exactly. So I got that. And so I remember it would have been Christmas evening that year that I watched it for the first time. And I remember vividly sitting in my room and watching it at night that time and just being absolutely blown away by it. Obviously, I had been exposed to it in the build-up because it was everywhere at the time. And I'll come back to that later, but, I know it was kind of marketed as the British Pulp Fiction in terms of you couldn't go into HMV without seeing the posters, postcards, the book, the soundtrack, latterly, the VHS. It was everywhere. You couldn't escape it. And of course, this was 96, so it was at the height of Britpop and Cool Britannia and Euro 96. So it was a swelling of, this British film is massive. So there was no escaping. But yeah, I watched it that evening and just fell in love. And I think I watched it twice on Boxing Day and then again, like on the 27th. And it was a heavy rotation film for me. Just absolutely adored it. I've seen it countless times. And even now, watching it this week, I spotted two things that I've never spotted before.
Oh, really? What was that?
And it just, I'll come back to them later.
Okay.
It's not things that I hadn't spotted, but it was things that I had maybe misinterpreted or that I'd always thought that. But even now, it still is making me notice things, and I'm still smirking and anticipating certain points coming up that just fill me with joy. Even in terms of to skip forward towards later, when Renton's in his flat in London reading the letter from Diane, and he just is also Francis Begbie has been in the news a lot, wanted for a robbery at a jeweller in Torfins or wherever, and the doorbell goes, and he just flips the letter and reads Francis Begbie. And, it's the anticipation of just seeing Begbie there again. I just adore this film. So yeah, that was my first kind of exposure to it. But I believe you'd read the book before you'd seen the film, had you?
Yeah, so there was... I'd first sort of heard about Trainspotting, and we mentioned it when we did the Shallow Grave episode. Like, before Shallow Grave, on the rental copy of the VHS, there was a teaser that they shot for Trainspotting. And if I'm right, they shot this teaser before they shot the film, and it's Hugh McGregor tied to a railway line, and he's talking about, I think he does a bit of the choose life thing and all that sort of stuff before the train goes over him. So it was in my mind, and then there was a kid at school called Martin Scott who had Trainspotting, and he had the Acid House. And Martin and I were kind of friendly because we weren't the same kind of music, sort of band music and stuff, blah, blah, blah. And he gave me Trainspotting. And that day, I think he gave me it in the morning at break time. That day, we got sent home early from school. So I was in 6th year at school. We got sent home early because there was a forecast of big snowstorm. So they came round, and I had to get the bus home back and forth to school. So they came round and said, look, the buses have been called. They were expecting a big snowstorm, so you got to go home. So I went home, nobody in. Like, my sisters were at school. Their school was right across the wall from our house, so they didn't get sent home when it snowed. My mum and my stepdad were at work. So I just sat down and started reading this book, and I pretty much read it from cover to cover, not all at once, but over the course of that day. So by the time I went to bed that night, I had read the whole book, and I was just captivated, totally captivated by it. And I took it back in for Martin when we're back. I think school was back on. I don't think the snowstorm came to anything that we're back at school the next day, and I gave it to him, and he gave me a loan of the Acid House. And I read that pretty quickly as well. I didn't devour it in the same way as I devoured Trainspotting, but I was just I just couldn't believe it, because it wasn't. I didn't identify with any of the scenarios that the characters were in, but the characters, they are kind of recognisable in a way. You know what I mean? Maybe not so much Renton, but someone who's a good-looking guy who seems to be able to get any kind of girl he wants. We all know guys like that. Well, we all did when we were younger, which would be Sick Boy. Guys that are fucking psycho.
But I was a bit older when you met me.
Guys that were fucking psychopaths that were always looking for trouble and trying to start fights. When you're kids like that. Guys like Spud, who are just sort of harmless but not very bright and getting into bother, all that sort of stuff. It was just really guys like Tommy, who are a bit cooler and sporty and everything, and you just sort of recognised all these characters. And then because it's set in in Scotland and it's set in Edinburgh, places that I knew of. I certainly knew Edinburgh city centre to some extent when I was that age, a bit. I didn't know Leith and all these other areas, but I could not put it down. So like when the movie was coming out, I couldn't wait to see it. Martin had passed the book around our kind of group of mates. So I think the Saturday, I think the film was released on the Friday. We had tickets for the Saturday night, and we drove in Aberdeen, watched it at the Odeon in Aberdeen. Just fucking, and I was like, you know, when you see a movie and you're like, I fucking can't wait to see that again. But in those days, you had to wait a while because it didn't come out in video until after the summer of that year. I remember going and spending £20 on a VHS copy of the video just because I had to have it. I remember they used to come in like a slightly bigger box, the VHS ones. So I just
X-Rental.
Yeah, X-Rental, that's what I meant to say. I just thought I had to have it, you know? You know, the both soundtracks and everything. Like you say, I don't think, I mean, the film and the book and the film are sort of set in the 80s in Edinburgh, the kind of, I think, sort of mid to late 80s. But, and the film, the intention of the film is that it is set around the same time as the book. But it just couldn't have landed at a better time, like you were saying before, for kind of pop culture in the UK at that time. You know what I mean? It was kind of part of it. Like I guess a movie like Easy Rider sort of sits alongside the music that was popular at the time that came out, like Steppenwolf and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and stuff. I think Trainspotting just does the same thing, but for the mid-90s. Just sits alongside everything that we're listening to, everything that we're watching on TV and everything. It's just, I don't think that there'll ever be anything like it again, because I don't think that we'll ever get a kind of musical and cultural movement that's everywhere, like Britpop was when we were in our teens, you know?
No, I completely agree. It's incredible just how much it completely encapsulated that era. And watching it again, you are just instantly transported back. I've been singing Lust for Life the entire week because I'd watched it. I mean, it could be because I watched Trainspotting 2 again yesterday as well. But, you know, I've been singing Lust for Life. I've been singing Atomic by Blondie the entire week as well because it's stuck in my head again. And I'm just transported back to that time. It was just, as you say, it was an incredible movement. And that says a lot for Irvine Welsh, who obviously wrote the book, that he had quite a lot of people coming to him wanting to turn this into a film. But they all wanted to make it into like a Ken Loach kind of art house type of film. It could have ended up a lot like Sweet 16, which we reviewed last time on the Swally. It kind of has that almost feeling you could have made it like that. But Danny Boyle was just so desperate, and he promised Irvine Welsh that I want to make this a mainstream film. Yeah. And that was what convinced Welsh to say, okay, yeah, it's yours. And Jesus, he did a hell of a job.
Yeah, totally. Because the thing is, when you read the book, there's an energy to the book. Okay? The book, for anybody who's not written the book, it's the book is a series of sort of stories about these characters and characters that don't make it into the movie. But you know, there's some stories that obviously just can't be kind of put on screen because they're too close to the bone. But it goes at a pace. So even none of the stories are particularly long. They're not drawn out. They're not like kind of novella length. They're just sort of chapters with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the sort of that, I think that gives the book a real pace, which I think Danny Boyle's done a great job of putting on the screen. You know, because it's only 90 minutes long, the movie, but there's so much, and so much happens in the 90 minutes.
It's incredible that it's so short. I genuinely had forgotten. Like when I started watching it, I was like, 90 minutes, is that it? And I had to double check, like, have I some dodgy version? But no, I couldn't remember. It's so compact. And as you say, it's so high energy and so fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's done an incredible job, because I listened to a podcast the other day with a couple of guys reviewing it as well, just in terms of doing some more research. And they had mentioned they both loved the film, and they said one of them had read the book and enjoyed it, and the other one said he couldn't get into the book. He couldn't get into it because it was like reading A Clockwork Orange, like it's all in Nadsat. But I guess to us, I can maybe see that because I've read the book quite a few times, but you just get into the flow of it so easily in terms of the language.
I think it's the power of the narrative that just helps you surrender to the way that he writes it in the kind of Edinburgh vernacular, the slang and stuff. And you were, by the time you get to the end of the book, you're an expert on it because we don't all speak the same way in every part of Scotland. Obviously, Aberdeen has its own very distinctive kind of vernacular and words and ways of speaking. You go a bit further northeast out of Aberdeen and it goes a bit Doric and a bit more so. Glasgow obviously has its own way and everything, just like England. So for me, like, for somebody who grew up reading like the Bruins and Noor Willie, it helps a wee bit in terms of just kind of getting comfortable with the way that Irvine Welsh writes the dialogue in these books. I gave it to my dad to read. I remember distinctly. Because in those days, my dad was working, he worked night shift every second weekend, and my dad still devours, he reads a lot of books, my dad. And I said to him, here, you should read Trainspotting, it's really good, it's really funny. I said, there's some really funny bits in it, I think you'll like it. And he came back the next day and he was like, fucking, that Edinburgh slang just does my nut in, I couldn't get into it. I was like, okay. When I was doing my research and kind of reading about how it's sort of journey from page to screen, that you touched on it already, like Irvine Welsh, he didn't want it to be, as you say, this sort of. I think he compares it to. He didn't want it to be something like the Basketball Diaries with Leonardo DiCaprio, or there's a German movie, I've never seen it, called Christine F. He didn't want to be anything like that. But apparently, Andrew MacDonald, who would go on to produce the movie, he had read the book, and apparently he doesn't read a lot of books, apparently, Andrew MacDonald, which unusually, but he said that he read it on a plane and really liked it, and he gave it to Danny Boyle and said, we should maybe be our next project. And Danny Boyle read the book and he enjoyed it as well. And so John Hodge had been their script writer on Shallow Grave, so they got him involved. And apparently Danny Boyle told Irvine Welsh that Andrew MacDonald and John Hodge were the two most important Scotsmen since Kenny Dalglish and Alex Ferguson. I don't know if you want to say that to like a Hibs fan. I guess he was a pragmatic Hibs fan. The book had already been made into a play where, funnily enough, Ewan Bremner, who plays Spud in the play, played the character of Renton. But yeah, like you say, like Boyle convinced them, because he showed them how he wanted to interpret the book and what he wanted to put in the screen. I don't think Irvine Welsh. I think the only other one of his books that I think has been really successfully made into a movie is Filth. There's only been The Acid House and Ecstasy, and they're both not great. I mean, Ecstasy is particularly poor. The movie is particularly poor. The Acid House isn't. It's better than Ecstasy, but it's not brilliant, I don't think.
Yeah, I would be in full agreement with you there. I was quite worried about Filth because I do adore that book as well.
Yeah.
But when I knew James McAvoy was on board, I kind of thought this could be okay. And it is. Filth's great, actually. I need to watch that again. But yeah, it's you're right. There's not a lot of his books that have made it successfully onto the screen.
But yeah, I mean, I just, like you say, it was just like fucking for about 2 years. It seemed to just be everywhere. Everywhere I went, Trainspotting, the kind of posters, people because when I went to college, left home and everything, everybody seemed to have the now famous poster of Ewan McGregor and Johnny Lee Miller, Ewan Bremner, Bobby Carlyle and Kelly MacDonald and their characters, that poster seems to be all over the place.
Yeah, I think it was that poster and the one of Begbie holding a knife to Renton's boss.
Yeah, I had the postcard.
That seemed
of that.
to be
I used to buy.
popular.
I used to buy postcards of film posters. You used to be able to buy them in like shops. I think shops like Virgin and stuff sold them. I used to collect them. I don't know what ever happened to them. I used to have quite a lot of them. But I had that one of yeah. I think it said at the bottom, "I'm no a fucking buffy, right?"
It did, yeah. Yes. So to talk about the cast, obviously Ewan McGregor had worked with Danny Boyle in Shallow Grave, and apparently he was the only choice to play Renton.
Yeah.
In terms of instantly Boyle knew that he wanted McGregor as Renton.
Yeah, I read that too. And but they wanted Ewan Bremner to be in the movie because they had seen the play and they obviously thought it was very good, and so he was cast as Spuds. But the thing about the casting is, because I had read the book before I saw the movie, and maybe this is just my mind kind of playing a bit of a trick on me, but Ewan Bremner just seems to be perfect in terms of how he looks for the mental image that I had created of Spud in my head before I saw the film, you know? Now, as I say, that could just be like my hindsight kind of playing tricks on me, but like, when I envisioned Renton when I was reading the book, didn't look like Ewan McGregor, and Begbie didn't look like Bobby Carlyle in my mind when I first read the book. Like, Begbie was, in my head, was like a sort of big guy with a shaved head, you know?
Yeah.
And Renton, actually, there's a guy that's a couple of years older than me at school called Lee Thompson, who had long ginger hair tied in a ponytail. So when I was reading, I kind of sort of had Lee in my mind when I read the book for the first time. And when I've read the subsequent books, I tend to see the actors and the characters, but for some reason I still sort of see Lee when I'm reading about Renton. I don't see Ewan McGregor.
It's the same as Johnny Lee Miller's Sick Boy. I think in the book, Sick Boy's got dark hair, and even in porno, he's described as having a ponytail like Steven Seagal.
Yeah, that's right.
So it was, I did read for Trainspotting 2, Johnny Miller offered to shave his head bald to make himself look older for the part. And Danny Boyle said, no, you have to have the bleach blonde hair. But yeah, they all do look different from they're described in the book, I would say. As you say, apart from Spud.
Yeah.
Spud is kind of nailed on. But I don't know if it's because we've grown up with this film for the last 25 years and because it is, but another podcast we listen to, the Rewatchables, they do the casting what ifs, or if you were going to recast anyone, I wouldn't recast a single character.
No.
From that. Everyone is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think especially, and I saw it when I was watching the film again this time, and I think it's been a wee while since I watched it, but Bobby Carlyle's he's not like as Begbie. He's not a massive presence in the first maybe 30, 40 minutes of the movie. It's not until the scene that you mentioned earlier on when Renton's reading the letter from Diane, then he's very much in it. But apart from the scene of him throwing the pint glass over his shoulder and the kind of flashback to the game of pool and the volley when he beats the guy up with the pool cue, you don't see too much of him until, you know, Renton goes to London and everything. But he, in watching Trainspotting 2, I mean, he really leans into the character, Bobby Carlyle, and you kind of get the impression that because he's a bit older, I think, than the rest of the cast, you get the impression that he has known 100 Frank Begbies in his life. You know, he kind of grew up in Glasgow in the late 60s and 70s when, you know, kind of working man city, quite a tough place to grow up, I would imagine, back in those days. He's brilliant because he's funny and you can laugh at him. But he's also like that scene that we were talking about on the postcards or the poster when he turns on Renton for making fun of him. He's chilling in that scene, you know, absolutely. And then later on, and I still find that scene quite hard to watch when he smashes the pint glass into the guy's face in the pub in London. You just realise, because like, if there was ever any doubt in your mind by that point in the film, although it's right at the kind of fag end of the movie, so any doubt in your mind that this guy's a fucking psycho, it's completely washed away by that scene, you know?
To go back to the scene of the knife against the wall with the boss, Renton knows Begbie so well. You know, he's known him since the first day at school, and they've been friends since. And he knows he's a fucking psycho. He mentions it a few times, and he could turn on a knife edge. But you think Begbie's obviously come back and told Mark about the what's happened in the car. And you can almost, it does look, because they're kind of halfway through the conversation when the scene starts. And it is almost like Renton is so relaxed and kind of like, I can have a laugh with this. It's fine. It's Franco. Everything's going to be okay. And that's when he says, it could have been something beautiful or something along those lines. And Begbie just fucking snaps like that.
Yeah.
And you think for Mark to have known him all these years and to think, this'll be okay. It'll be okay if I can say this. Yeah, that's true. That's the mark of an absolute head case.
Yeah.
that you have to worry about.
Look, I'm not a fucking buffy and that's the end of it.
Let's face it could have been wonderful.
Fucking listen to me, you piece of junky shit. A joke's a fucking joke. You mention that again, I'll cut you up. You understand?
He's so good in that, Bobby Carlyle, because there's a sort of, I don't know if this is like part of the soundtrack or if it's him making the noise, but after Renton says that to him, there's like a sort of like a deep breath or something as he's getting up, that kind of, and he flicks a lit cigarette at Ewan McGregor, and luckily it hits the wall, but it could have hit him in the face or something, And I wonder. I mean, I've not seen anything about it in the. I know that the movie, a lot of the scenes are like the first take because they shot it over 7 weeks, which is not a long time. They only had £1.5 million, so they had to really go for it. But I think that Danny Boyle wanted to get some of these in the first take just to keep that energy of the film up. But I don't think Ewan McGregor was expecting to have a lit cigarette flicked at his head.
If not, he's got a hell of a good reaction, in terms of the acting ability. Yeah. No, I did read, I think the majority of the film was filmed in one take because they were so limited and restricted. Yeah. And if you think about some of the set pieces that they have would take a couple of days filming at least. So yeah, scenes like that with Begbie and Brenton would have been filmed very quickly. Yeah. So either you're right, either Bobby Carlyle has just flicked a lit cigarette at him with him not expecting it, or Ewan McGregor has got incredible reaction acting ability for that.
Yeah. And it's difficult to flick a cigarette with a degree of accuracy as well,
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
But yeah, because the thing is, the only thing that I had ever seen Bobby Carlyle in before Trainspotting was Hamish Macbeth, which for people who might not know about Hamish Macbeth, it was quite a gentle sort of Scottish drama, maybe comedy drama, more along but fairly gentle, fairly benign.
Did you say it was like the Scottish version of Heartbeat?
That's a great way to describe it. And Ewan McGregor played Hamish Macbeth. Bobby Carlyle played Hamish Macbeth, the island Bobby police officer. So, and I'd seen like bits and bobs of Hamish Macbeth. I hadn't seen a lot of it. I didn't realise that Robert Carlyle had been acting for quite a long time and had done like some pretty serious drama before. So, I mean, there isn't a character further away from Hamish Macbeth than Francis Begbie. Do you know what I mean?
But he wasn't the first choice for the role, was he? It was Christopher Eccleston that Danny Boyle originally had in mind for Begbie. Yeah. And all I can say is, thank God Christopher Eccleston turned it down, because I can't imagine him playing Begbie.
No, me neither. I mean, I'm trying to think, because I think the thing that makes him quite effective is that Bobby Carlyle's not very tall. I've seen him from a distance when I lived in Glasgow, in the city centre. He's not a very big guy, and even against the other actors, like again going back to that scene when he kind of pushes Ewan McGregor up against the wall. Ewan McGregor's like a lot taller than him. I know he's up on his tiptoes and everything. And again, you know these guys who aren't very big and are fucking nutters, and they kind of want to prove the fact that they're like, just because they're wee, they're still hard cunts, and they'll fucking take on any cunt and all that kind of thing,
And that's what makes it, I think, so realistic and makes Begbie so terrifying. Yeah. He is just, I've met guys just like Begbie.
I don't want to spend too much time on Bobby Carlyle because there's so many good performances in the film, but I will just say this, like that scene that I mentioned, the one that I still find is still kind of a bit hard to watch when he glasses the guy in the pub. Those three guys that he kind of bumps into and he's out from the bar are all a good bit taller than him, including the guy that gets the glass smashed into his face. But I mean, and the actors that play these guys, these three guys are, I mean, they might not even be actors, they might be extras or whatever, but it really was something quite affecting about it when I watched this the other day. So when he's when Begbie's like asking if anybody else wants to get in his way, he's like you, and the camera rests on these two guys for a few seconds, and they're there in their kind of tucked in polo shirts, still holding their pints. They've got beer down the front of their shirts. One of them's kind of looking at the ground. The other one's kind of looking at Begbie in kind of sort of fear, like he can't look away from him. And again, it's the fucking power of Bobby Carlyle in that role. So good. We sort of, I think it's sort of my fault, we sort of slipped past him a bit there, but Ewan McGregor as Renton, that you said before, he was the first and only choice for Danny Boyle and Andrew McDonald because they enjoyed working with him on Shallow Grave and liked his work. Apparently, Boyle said that they wanted somebody who had the kind of quality of Michael Caine's character in the movie Alfie, and also Malcolm McDowell's character in A Clockwork Orange, repulsive with charm that makes you feel deeply ambiguous about what he's doing. And I think that they definitely get that with Ewan McGregor. The only thing is, in the book, Renton he's unhygienic, he's got bad skin, he's socially awkward and stuff like that. And I think there's even a bit in the book where he mentions that he's never been a particularly hygienic one for washing and all that kind of thing. But I think the reason Ewan McGregor wins through is because he's just deeply, deeply charismatic as Mark Renton,
I think it would be difficult to pull off the Renton character exactly as he is in the book, as you've described just now, because you have to remember he is the leading man in this big film. Yeah. And the film very much is Renton's story. What I think about that is that Renton is very much he's the character I think you can relate to the most, and he is kind of, not the everyman, but what I'm trying to say is out of the main kind of core four, you would say, let's just slightly exclude Tommy from this, but the core four, Spud, Sick Boy and Begbie's characters are all kind of heightened in terms of, they're kind of over the top the way they are, whereas Mark is a bit more grounded and a bit more relatable in a way, and you can kind of see parts of yourself in Renton to a certain degree, I think. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he, as the narrator, he allows you to see these other characters through his lens. All the exposition is on him, as the one that's taken us through the film. The only difference is he's still is a kind of pivotal part of it. He's the one that we see, like kick heroin and then go through cold turkey and the scene when he's hallucinating in bed and everything, and then become sort of like swap his drug addiction and the lifestyle that goes with it for what he determines as a similar sort of lifestyle in London as a estate agent. Sort of hustling, right? He's, I guess there's a hustle to his lifestyle as a drug addict, and there's a hustle to his lifestyle as an estate agent in London. But I mean, the thing is that what surprises me about the character of Renton and for Ewan McGregor is arguably this is the movie that has made Ewan McGregor an international superstar, and he's easily there's nobody else in the cast apart from, I guess Danny Boyle's director, but certainly nobody else in the cast who has gone on to be so successful and really an A-list movie star. No, definitely not. You could maybe say that his star has slightly faded now. Obviously, he's still very successful. He's still doing. He was in one of the series of Fargo. Yeah, he's got an Obi-Wan TV show coming out, I think, and he's still very successful. But yeah, it did catapult him into A-list, and yeah, he wouldn't have been Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, 3 years after this, he's playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. 99 was it? The Phantom Menace. Yeah, that's a stellar rise into that. I mean, what's his next? I don't know his next film after this. I know he did like Brassed Off and stuff, but
Life Less Ordinary. Did he do that before
Life Less Ordinary? Yeah. Yes, he did. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. With Cameron Diaz, and you're like, holy shit! In my last film, I was climbing down a toilet to get some opium suppositories, and now I'm starring across Cameron Diaz.
Yeah, but if you're George Lucas and you're casting like essentially get the young Alec Guinness, right? That's the part you're looking for. You're looking for somebody who can convey the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but I mean, Alec Guinness is just I don't think he's acting an awful lot in Star Wars. Alec Guinness, it's just he probably spoke to all the actors exactly the same way as he speaks to Luke Skywalker. Kind of friendly, convivial advice, and so we need somebody that can play this part. So Ewan McGregor's reel at the time is going to be Shallow Grave, Trainspotting. He might have been cast as Obi-Wan before A Life Less Ordinary, because I think A Life Less Ordinary is only like a year or two after Trainspotting. So what do you show George Lucas? Here I am climbing out of a toilet. Here I am pretending to inject heroin. Here I am in a scene with a dead baby climbing across my bedroom ceiling. It's just the right person we want for this Alec Guinness role. I mean, I watch Hugh McGregor in anything. I think, he's sort of like, I think, for my dad growing up, when he was a little boy, the actors would have been sort of John Wayne, I guess, because when he was a little boy, but then older, being like kind of Clint Eastwood, that sort of actor, just because he was just have been in things that would have had an impact on my dad at an impressionable age. I think I watch Hugh McGregor in anything because of Trainspotting. Very good. I watch him in anything. I think he's great. And then next again, we've got a Swally favourite, Johnny Lee Miller. He's been on. We did Complicity. I saw a quick excerpt from the Graham Norton show when he had Ewan McGregor, Johnny Lee Miller, Ewan Bremner, Danny Boyle, and Bobby Carlyle on for Trainspotting 2. And Ewan Bremner tells a story of after the wrap party for Trainspotting. So they had finished shooting. They were flying to London. He thinks they were flying to London in the morning to shoot that poster that we're talking about earlier on. And he said that he shared a taxi with Johnny Lee Miller, and he started talking in his own, of course, English accent. I guess he had just kept his Scottish accent all the way through the shoot, because, as I said before, it's a phenomenal Scottish accent, Johnny Lee Miller, and it's not an easy accent to do. For every Johnny Lee Miller doing a Scottish accent, there's a Liam Neeson's Scottish accent. There's a Christophe Lambert Scottish accent. It's not an easy accent to do. I should have said this before. I'm sure I said when we did the Complicity episode. It was quite a long time, maybe years, before I knew that Johnny Lee Miller wasn't Scottish, because even his name sounds a wee bit Scottish.
To go back to the last episode when we reviewed Sweet 16, available wherever you get your podcast, and we mentioned about Martin Compston on Line of Duty and his English accent. Mm-hmm. And we said it kind of puts you off because you're so used to hearing him with a Scottish accent. Yeah. I feel that way when I hear Johnny Lee Miller talk in his normal accent. I'm like, that's not right. I expect him to sound like Sick Boy because his accent is phenomenal. It's so good. I would never have realised that he wasn't Scottish. He's so good at it. And his Sean Connery impression is second to none.
It's really good. I mean, and his whole little kind of monologue that he does near the beginning of the film when he's talking about Dr. No and Goldfinger and how Goldfinger's better than Dr. No. I mean, it's, when you read the book, Sick Boy's obsession, there's a chapter where he's sort of talking to Sean Connery in his head, Sick Boy. He might not have looked exactly how he is written, but he certainly conveys the character exactly how it's written in the first book anyway. I mean, Sick Boy becomes a much more developed character in later books like Porno and Dead Men's Trousers especially. But yeah, he's great at it, and of course he's good looking as well. He's a good looking guy, Johnny Lee Miller. Yeah. So that ease with the women and all that is very believable.
Oh yeah, completely believe it. That Simon has this way with women, without a doubt.
We spoke about Ewan McGregor. I guess the other person we need to talk about is Kevin McKidd as Tommy, is the ill-fated Tommy. This, because we said when we did Small Faces, I thought that Trainspotting was his movie debut, but it was Small Faces was his movie debut. But and the Danny Boyle had seen him in rushes when he had come up to visit the set of Small Faces, and that's what led them to casting him as Tommy. And he's great. I mean, he's not got a huge amount of screen time compared to the other actors, but when he's the scenes that he's in, he's really good in.
Really good actor, very believable, and absolutely breaks your heart because in the first half hour, 40 minutes of the film, he is such a nice guy and a lovely character, and at the end of the day, it's Renton that fucks him over by swapping the videos, which leads to his downfall, and then, of course. But it's such a shame, and that's, I suppose, the human element of the film, in that you really like this character. He's done nothing wrong, hasn't harmed anyone. He's obviously a very truthful soul, because, as Renton says, when Begbie's telling the story about the pool game and gives his version, and then I think Renton says, I got the truth from Tommy.
Yeah.
Does he say you always get the truth from Tommy? Or something, So he's obviously a very good-hearted, kind, nice guy, and it's just a shame that he is the ultimate kind of downfall in the film.
Yeah, one of my favourite scenes in the film, kind of perversely, is Tommy's funeral, when Billy Renton, who is a much bigger presence and part in the book, is like a footnote in the film, right?
But he isn't Billy Renton in the film. It's Gavin Temperley.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, let's talk about it now. But yes, he's credited as Gavin Temperley,
right? And
he's obviously only in a couple of scenes because he's there at the end of the court case. Yeah. When Renton gets off, so that's when I thought, okay, so that is his brother then. Yeah. And then of course they're at Tommy's funeral, and they go, okay, but in Trainspotting 2, when Sick Boy and Begbie are in the cellar, and Sick Boy says, do you remember Gavin Temperley? Yeah. And Begbie says, oh yeah, I remember him. Well, he saw Renton in Amsterdam. Yeah. So it is a different character. It's not Billy Renton. Oh. So effectively, in the film, I think Renton is an only child.
Right, okay. Because like in the book, his brother Billy is a massive character in the book. But he's even got a chapter or two of his own with his mates, right? When they have
he does.
The kind of Christmas club money or whatever it is.
That's right, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, that conversation between, Gavin and Renton, when Gavin's telling Renton how Tommy died. I mean, and it's fucking, I mean, it's tragic. There's no getting around that it's tragic. And, like Begbie's in front of them, kind of hissing at them when they're talking during when the minister's giving the eulogy. And maybe I won't describe it because maybe you'll cut it in, but just the very last line of it about the kitten. I mean, it's laugh out loud funny.
Well, the kitten was fine though. Okay. Yeah. It is the acting in that scene as well, as you say. It's so funny with what he's describing, and when he says it's fucking awful, it's like an abscess in your brain, but he does the hand gesture to his head, and it's so well acted. Very good.
I mean, in the book, it's because Tommy survives the first book. The character because that little monologue comes out of the character Matty's funeral, and he's quite a big character in the book as well. But I think everyone else kind of kills him off about 2/3 in, I think. But he goes back to him in the prequel book Skag Boys, and I think he even appears in Glue as well, Matty,
I think he does, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I suppose Kevin McKidd has become, I mean, he's a big star in America, right? He was in Grey's Anatomy, and he was in Rome, the HBO one, which was, I watched that. I thought it was really good, Rome. I really enjoyed it. He's like a household name in the US now, Kevin McKidd. And I suppose the last big part that we need to talk about is Kelly MacDonald. Not a huge, but a certainly very important part is the 15-year-old jailbait Diane. I mean, she's very good. It's her journey to the movies quite interesting because she hadn't really done any professional acting before. She went to an open casting call. Danny Boyle wanted an unknown actress to play Diane, so the surprise, spoilers, when after Renton sleeps with her and he finds out the next morning that she's still a schoolgirl. So he didn't want an actress that people knew. It would be harder to believe them as a schoolgirl because she was only 19. But I guess she looks, especially when they put her in her school uniform in the later scenes, she does look quite young,
Yeah, I mean, her introduction is incredible. This strong, feisty female character in the film, and the way Mark approaches her as they leave the volcano club. Mm-hmm. And she just gives him this speech, but then leaves the taxi door open. Yeah, It's great. And I think the first time I saw it, didn't see that coming, that she was a schoolgirl. But yeah, she's brilliant.
I mean, she's also gone on to be for a really successful career. She was in Boardwalk Empire, the sort of spiritual sequel to The Sopranos, in as much that the writers and all that, it was the next thing they did all the way through. I mean, she's a Disney princess. She does I can't remember the name of the character, but she does the girl in Brave, Merida, I think it is. She's in the next series of Line of Duty as well, apparently. Yeah, when it comes out. Yeah, she's done really well. But yeah, she's for someone who had never done any professional acting before. And I know all the well, certainly Hugh McGregor, I think, was in his early 20s. He wasn't that much older than Kelly MacDonald, and that maybe I think he's like 24 or 25, something like that, like a huge amount older. But she said I watched a bit of an interview with her on YouTube on the TVAM, whatever it's called. It's on ITV now in the mornings, and she was talking about a drama that she had just done for the BBC, and they talked to her about Trainspotting, and she said that there was a green room for the actors and actresses on Trainspotting, but she was so intimidated by the cast that she just couldn't go in there. So every time the runners were looking for her, she was always hiding in the toilets. But she said she couldn't look Ewan McGregor in the eye, because it's her first role in a movie, and she has to do I guess reasonably graphic in as much that she has to appear naked, and it's a reasonably graphic sex scene that she does.
That sex scene had to be cut in the American version of Trainspotting. They cut about 3 or 4 seconds out of it,
right,
because Diane was enjoying herself too much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it was because she then is revealed that she's a schoolgirl, then it can't be seen that she's enjoying it too much. So yeah, there was a few seconds of that cut in the American version. But yes, it's a pretty graphic sex scene. I have watched it many times, and it is quite graphic.
I think in one of the little documentaries that I watched about the making of Trainspotting, apparently when the movie was released in the US, they did some pickups where they asked the actors to re-record some of their dialogue and make it a little bit clearer so American audiences could understand it, but apparently they still had to subtitle the movie. Because I don't know how you would it just makes me think of that Burniston sketch with the 3-litre bottle of ginger movie adaptation of the incident, but yeah, I mean, she's to hear her say I couldn't look Ewan McGregor in the eye, I was really intimidated and all that doesn't come across on the movie at all. No. That scene you mentioned outside the nightclub, she's very much in charge of that scene, as she's supposed to be, but she's really, really good.
Even the follow-up scene when they're walking to school and she says to him, if you don't see me again, I'll call the police.
Do you know what they do to guys like me in prison, Diane? They cut her balls off and flush her in the fucking toilet.
So we've covered the cast. To talk about the film for a bit, I know we've kind of jumped around. Is there a better opening to a film than seeing Mark Renton and Spud bombing down the street and Lust for Life playing?
I don't know. I mean, I was thinking to myself, is there any movies that go right into it in the same way as Trainspotting? I don't think there is.
It's just a hell of an opening. Yeah. It's so good. And I've been struggling to think of a film that instantly, within the first second, you're like, wow, this is it.
And I think it sets, so I was going to say, I think it sets the tone for the whole movie, because like we touched on earlier, it just never lets up the film. It's like 90 minutes, so much happens, it moves at a real pace,
And it's so cleverly done in that you have the Choose Life speech going over, and then, of course, it shows these 5 guys as friends and playing 5-a-side. And of course the names flash up, which is very strange for a film, but again, you instantly know. There's no need for introductions. Oh hi, I'm Mark. Oh hi, I'm Tommy. We've been at school for all these years. There's no need for that. You know instantly who these characters are, and then boom, it's straight into Swannies. It just does not give you a second. But then even after that, they do a very good job of properly introducing the characters one by one in a way that each have their little own 3-4 minute kind of segment where you get to know who that character is. And then, again, as you say, the film just keeps going. To talk about the first scene as you mentioned earlier, when Sick Boy is giving his Dr. No speech, a flashback to one of the first time I've realised this watching this film. Sick Boy is, whilst he's giving his speech, he's cooking up and he's about to inject Alison. Is that Alison's first hit?
I don't know. I don't think so. I never got the feeling that it was, but maybe that's because I'd read the book. I don't know.
I wasn't sure, but I'd never thought that before. But it's almost something about the kind of fear and trepidation in her face. And the way Sick Boy's like, do you want me to do it? And then her reaction is like, that's better than any cock in the world. Would you say that? Maybe you would if you'd had it many times, but I just wondered if that was the first time. But then maybe not, because obviously she's there with Baby Dawn. She's obviously around all the time. As we know, Baby Dawn is Simon, so she must have been there about, because Baby Dawn is there in that scene.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not. That was just one thing I wondered and wanted to ask you what you thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, I can say maybe it's because I had read the book, but it never occurred to me that it might be her first hit. You could be right, I'm not sure. But the interesting thing about that is that little scene is that you see Baby Dawn in the background, and there's a kind of look exchanged between her and Sick Boy, and it's almost like she's telling him for the first time that Dawn is his baby. Do you know what I mean? Because there's a bit more mystery around who the baby's father is in the book, especially the chapter when they find that she's died a cot death in her crib. But you could be right. I mean, that actress that plays Alison, I didn't really look her up on IMDb, but I don't think I've ever seen her in anything else. She's a big character in the book, Alison, and she's actually a much bigger character in the follow-up in Porno and later on in Dead Men's Trousers. And it's Skag Boys, she's one of the principal characters, right? Okay, so you got a lot of characters that we said before. I guess they can't all make it onto the screen.
No, of course, and I think a lot of characters get kind of melded into one. And quite quickly you get the idea of Sick Boy and Mark's relationship. I'd love the part where Mark decides that's it, he's had enough, he's off the skag. And he walks up to who we haven't spoken about yet.
Oh yeah, Peter Mullen.
Johnny Swan, Peter Mullen. And when he says, I'm using the Sick Boy method, Sick Boy is laying out, sparked out, full of skag, and Peter Mullen says, oh, that's worked out well for him, isn't it? He's always been lacking in moral fibre. I mean, talk about Peter Mullen and Johnny Swan. A fantastic performance again, and such a great character.
He's a brilliant actor, and there's a scene that didn't make it into the final cut of the film, but I've seen it on the special editions and stuff where Renton goes to visit Johnny Swan in the hospital, and he's had to have his leg removed because the veins had collapsed because he's ran out of places to inject himself, and he says how he's going to go to Thailand and all that kind of thing. And then later on there's a shorter scene that's cut out, just a very quick flash when Renton's running to the bus stop, and outside the bus stop he doesn't notice him, but Johnny Swan's there and he's holding a Falklands veteran sign, and he's sitting begging for money. And I guess those scenes got taken out because of sort of time constraints, and maybe it slowed the pacing down or whatever, but though they're good callbacks to the book, because I know that in the book there's a scene, that scene's in the book, isn't it? And there's a whole little chapter about how Johnny Swan is cheerfully defrauding the people of Edinburgh, pretending to be a Falklands war victim, and even this woman whose son is killed in the Falklands, who gives him 20 quid and all that. But yeah, we've had Peter Mullen on the Swally before when we did Orphans. He's a phenomenal actor. He's another one that I'll watch in anything. Yeah, he's really good.
It's the guy's a massive drug dealer, so there's a sinister edge to him, but he's just such a comedic character as well. So happy-go-lucky. And not to go on, this could be the last time I'll mention the sequel, because I mentioned it a few times, but because I just watched it yesterday, it's why it's fresh in my mind. Yeah. But there's a great part where Sick Boy says to Renton, Swanee's dead, and Renton says that, I'd be amazed if he wasn't.
The scene where Renton has the overdose, and the kind of run up to that, to his actual overdose, when he goes to Johnny Swan's, and Johnny Swan's like the waiter, with sort of like a starter, perhaps some garlic bread. No, I think I'll go straight to the intravenous injection of hard drugs, please.
It's that whole scene is incredible. I love the comedy aspect of, as you say, then Renton obviously starts having an overdose, and Swanee just leans over. Would Sir like me to call him a taxi? And then you see the ambulance going down the street and through the street, and Swanee's got his big Matrix leather coat on, pulling him down the stairs, banging his head. And you see the ambulance, and it just goes past the street, and then a taxi pulls up. Swanee chucks him in the taxi, sticks a $5 in the top pocket, pats it, off you go. The comedy of that, because it's the misdirection that you're thinking, this ambulance is obviously for Mark. No, it's actually getting a taxi.
But there's also something, because like in the book, it's mentioned how they all knew each other, Johnny Swan included, right, when they were young boys and stuff. And I think that scene, maybe just for me, it's because like you can't imagine there's many drug dealers that are going to put somebody in a taxi and send them to the hospital when they overdose. And when he sticks the tenner in Renton's shirt pocket, and he sort of gives him a bit of a sort of affectionate tap on the cheek, like, you'll be all right or whatever. And I sort of, I think it does, for the movie, it kind of speaks to that history between the characters a bit, that it's not just, they're not just associates or whatever. There's a deeper friendship there. And I guess it would probably be more if they had left the scene in where he goes to see him in the hospital after his leg amputated. I guess it would have been explained a bit more, or been a bit clearer. But yeah, it's a good scene, that, and it's got like my favourite song from the soundtrack, Perfect Day by Lou Reed. It's not just one of my favourite songs, and it's my favourite song on the soundtrack. It's one of my favourite songs. It's brilliant. I'd never heard it before I saw Trainspotting. I'd never heard it, but it's one of those, like when you hear a song and it's sort of got its hooks into you after like the first 30 seconds or whatever of the song. You're just like, yeah, I fucking love that. It's brilliant. Like, some songs, you need to hear them a few times, I think, before they really get their hooks into you. But for me, speaking personally, that song, I couldn't wait to go out and buy the soundtrack when it was released for that song.
Slightly spoiled for me when the BBC used it for like Children in Need with Heather Small and stuff. And I think
Tom Jones, Boyzone.
Someone did point out, do you realise what this song's about? It's about, it's about Lou Reed waiting for his heroin dealer to come along and oh, really? Oh, well, we're going to use it for Children in Need anyway.
Yeah.
In fact, to talk about the soundtrack, do you know the Lou Reed song Perfect Day and Lust for Life Iggy Pop, how they managed to get those songs for so cheap for the soundtrack?
No.
Because David Bowie was a massive fan of Shallow Grave.
Right.
He absolutely loved Shallow Grave and got in touch with Danny Boyle, and they built up a little friendship, and he'd mentioned about he was doing this film Trainspotting and how we'd love to get these two songs, but the fee for them was astronomical and they were working on such a tight budget. And Bowie said, yeah, well, I know Lou and Iggy, let me have a word with them. He did, and he got them for like a massively reduced rate. And I think it was maybe part of the deal, because then Iggy Pop re-released Lust for Life, and Danny Boyle directed the music video for it. So I think that was maybe part of the deal. But yeah, it was thanks to David Bowie that those two songs made it into the final cut of Trainspotting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I think they're probably the two. Well, there's probably those two songs and "Born Slippy" by Underworld, the outro. They're probably the three songs that are the most associated with the movie. But what I read when I was doing, which I didn't know this before, but when I was reading about the making of the film, or I can't remember if I read it or if it was on one of the documentaries, but Danny Boyle wanted the soundtrack to sort of represent the passing of time in the narrative of the film, so I think the film was supposed to sort of take place over the space of maybe 2 or 3 years, and that by using, although there's like Atomic, which is a Blondie song, but it's covered by Sleeper. There's some songs that didn't make it onto the first soundtrack album, like Heaven 17, Temptation. That's not in the original. I think that came out in the Green soundtrack, didn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was quite interesting, because I think that's maybe one thing that the movie doesn't exactly nail, is this conveyance of the passing of time. You could be forgiven for thinking that it just all happens in the space of, I don't know, whatever, like a year or a few months or whatever. I think when there's a conversation between Diane and Renton later on in the movie when she comes round to his flat, when they're talking about Iggy Pop, and she says, oh, he's dead anyway, and he says, Iggy Pop's not dead, Tommy went to see him last year. And I think that's really the only thing that sort of suggests that it's the story that's in the film has happened over a couple of years.
Yeah, that's true. Never thought about that. Yeah, a very good point.
But it was interesting to hear Danny Boyle say that he really wanted the soundtrack to do that work for him, you know. And of course, Primal Scream recorded a song especially for the movie called Trainspotting, the kind of instrumental. I think that was around the time that they were doing like kind of Vanishing Point album and stuff like that, you know, when they kind of went away from just straight kind of rock music and something a bit more interesting.
There's so many amazing scenes in this film. Like it's hard to pinpoint for the awards in terms of best scene. I'm really struggling. I've got a couple that are in my mind, but there's so many iconic scenes in this film that just make it so difficult. And you could quote any to people and they will know what you're on about, you know, from Begbie throwing the pint jug over the balcony, and into, you know, the scene in the park where they shoot the dog and with an air rifle for anyone that hasn't seen it. And if you haven't seen it, why you listen to this? Go and watch it. Into the withdrawal scene with Baby Dawn, you know, on the ceiling, and of course Dale Winton, his only film appearance.
The late Dale Winton.
Does Dale Winton have more lines in this film than James Cosmo?
He might do, actually. Yeah.
I was surprised watching this back how little James Cosmo says in this film, and even the sequel. He's got about 3 lines, but in this film, Cosmo hardly says a word.
Yeah, he's and then in the sequel, I don't think he says anything, does he?
He does. I think in his second scene he doesn't say anything, but in his first scene he does. He says to Mark, it was peaceful at the end. She asked for you, like she always hoped you'd come home.
Right.
I think that's it. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the first film, he's got about 4 or 5 lines. The most lines he says is probably with Dale Winton. But yeah, I think Dale Winton has more lines in this film than James Cosmo. I'd need to go back and fact check that, but...
No, it's probably you're probably right. I think we touched on this in the Shallow Grave one. This thing that Danny Boyle, it's like on 2 occasions, and then by putting a game show in, like a fake game show into his movie, and then doing a whole Oscar-winning movie about a game show.
But there are, as I say, so many iconic and big scenes in this film, and probably one of the biggest is the only scene in this film I fucking hate.
Which scene's that?
The worst toilet in Scotland.
Yeah.
I just do not like this scene. And it's nothing to be with being disgusted or being upset at the amount of shite, which was actually chocolate, by the way, when they were filming it. So, but I just don't like it. It just takes it out. The only part of the scene I like is when he gets the suppositories back at the end and he shouts underwater, "You fucking dancer." I just don't like that part. I understand why it's there. It's to show the lengths that he will go to get his drugs, what he will go through in order to get his hit and his fix, but there's just something about that scene just doesn't sit right with me, and it just takes me out of the film, and then I have to kind of come back in. I guess maybe that is the point, maybe much like him going down and going out of the world and then coming back in, but I'm not a fan of that scene at all.
Well, apparently, we sort of touched on it earlier, Danny Boyle didn't want to have a straight narrative to the movie. He wanted it to be kind of closer in style to the book. So whereas the book is short chapter stories that are all connected, the movie is a lot of like very quick scenes, but there's hints of surrealism in the book, and that toilet scene is sort of Danny Boyle trying to sort of stay along the same lines, because obviously it's exactly as you said, but it's a very surreal scene. He obviously didn't really go down into he climbed down, it'd be impossible. But it's to do with Danny Boyle trying to keep the same sort of style as the book. But yeah, and the thing is, every time I see it, that toilet just looks worse every single time. And there's a cool little callback in T2 in the club when he opens the first. He's like, oh fucking hell, and then he finds a clean one. No, I'm with you. I mean, there's a couple of scenes that it's not that I don't like them. It's just that they're hard to watch. Like the dead baby scenes, like when they find her in the cot, and then later on, in fact, the whole scene where Renton is hallucinating when he's in his bed and he's going through withdrawal. The whole scene's quite hard to watch, and I guess it's intended to be like the scene like we mentioned earlier, when the guy gets the glass smashed into his face in the pub in London. Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike them, but they're difficult to watch. I think I mentioned it the last time. I'm a bit more sensitive than I was when Trainspotting came out, because I'm getting old.
I think that's what a lot of people will remember from the film, though. I think with my wife, I'd mentioned we were doing it. I'd said, do you want to watch it again? No. It's okay. No, I did the baby across the ceiling. And I think that is what a lot of people took away from this film, the dead baby crawling across the ceiling. And it's horrific, but...
Yeah. I mean, it's not a great effect in 2021. You know what I mean? It's obviously a kind of animatronic thing you can even see the kind of rail that it's on. You know what I mean?
But then you always forget when it drops down on him.
Yeah.
And then you are a bit like, oh, fuck. Take that away. Again, other iconic scenes, the job interview scene with Spud, and that is just wonderful from Ewan Bremner. It is what attracted to you, the leisure industry, and it's the look away and the look back. And so simple, but so funny. And in a word, pleasure. And he does so well in that scene. And it's just little things of, when he's going up to say goodbye and thank them for their time, and he shakes the woman's hand and he goes to kiss the guy. So don't take speed before a job interview, kids.
I tell you a scene I like. Well, it's not even a whole scene, it's just like a little part of a scene, but at the end, when Keith Allen's character takes the drug user into the bathroom to test the heroin they're trying to sell, and Begbie likes it. And the reason I like the scenes because it kind of resonates. It'll resonate with you as well, but Begbie likes a cigarette, and Sick Boy kind of pats his pockets and asks for one, and Begbie throws it to him, and then he asks for a light as well, and he's like you fucking hell.
My normal reaction to that would have been, do you want me to smoke it for you as well?
It's just, it's just that. I mean, I guess there's supposed to be an element of tension in the scene, and it's more Begbie's sort of reaction to Sick Boy cadging a cigarette off him. He sort of throws it to him, and then this is the way his shoulders kind of fall back when he's got to give him a light as well. It's really funny.
And to mention Keith Allen, watching it again, I'm like, yeah, it's definitely Hugo from Shallow Grave.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. It's the same character. No question. Dressed the same.
Nice way to connect the movies together,
Yeah, very nice.
I tell you something that I learned when I was doing my research that I didn't know was, and I feel like I should have known this because I know the movie I'm going to talk about quite well, but in the Clockwork Orange film, when they're in the Moloko bar, there's like writing on the wall behind Malcolm McDowell. When they're in a nightclub in Trainspotting, and Spud and Tommy are talking about how Spud, Gail won't have sex with Spud, they've got the same writing on there, but the other thing I found out was, so the song that's on at the time I mentioned already is Temptation by Heaven 17. The band in the Book of Clockwork Orange is called Heaven 17, and that was that was one of the reasons for having that song in that particular part of the soundtrack. That was quite cool.
I do like that. That is a good fact. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
The other part of that scene is, now there are subtitles because I think the music is too loud and it comes up. But have you noticed the subtitles in terms of they don't follow exactly what the characters are saying, and the subtitles are different because Tommy speaks about that he had tickets for Iggy Pop, and Spud says to him, was she upset? And Tommy says, big time, absolutely fucking raj. And on the subtitle it comes up, very.
That's right.
So is that just a little subtle joke, us to pick up on? But I did like that as well. It makes me laugh every time I watch it.
I mean, I think the surprise of Trainspotting is its international success. It's got the movie has a 91% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Rolling Stone said at the time, the writer Peter Travers, Rolling Stone, said the film's flash can't disguise the emptiness of these blasted lives. Trainspotting is 90 minutes of raw power that Boyle and a bang-on cast inject right into the vein.
I would agree with that, definitely.
Yeah. But the US Senator Bob Dole accused the film of moral depravity and glorifying drug use in his 1996 US presidential campaign, although he did later admit that he hadn't seen the film. What a fucking twat.
Do you think it glorifies drug use?
Not at all.
To be completely honest, no?
To be completely honest, no. It certainly doesn't glamorise heroin. And the only other drug that you really see being abused in the film is the speed and maybe hash, I suppose. But it didn't make me. It certainly wouldn't. It did not make 17-year-old impressionable Greg want to rush out and try heroin.
The scene where Tommy comes to Mark and wants to get some heroin, and I mean that's the worst you see Renton in the film. He looks like a fucking mess, and Tommy's still wanting to try this. Doesn't look like a good idea to me. Mm-hmm. In terms of other films, like Human Traffic, for example, I would say that does glamorise the use of ecstasy.
Undoubtedly.
100%.
Yeah.
But Trainspotting, no, I wouldn't say it would glamorise heroin. And in fact, in Human Traffic, I think they do reference Trainspotting, don't they? Is there not a scene where... I'm sure there's a scene where they are speaking about someone about drug use, and one of them says, "Oh yeah, as soon as I saw Trainspotting, I wanted to go and cook up," but in a sarcastic way, which I think again is kind of like then a meta joke, maybe that would be. Yeah. But I don't know, but yeah, that massively glamorises drug use. Trainspotting, I don't think so at all. I would say the sequel does. The sequel glamorises cocaine a little bit in a couple of scenes, but. I wouldn't say this glamorised heroin at all.
I mean, I don't, when Trainspotting came out, I remember it was certainly in the kind of popular press. It was like, and as much as it was still praised in the popular press, it was like it was the heroin movie. But when you think about all the things, when I think about how you and I discuss Trainspotting in years gone by, what was spoken about, and discussing the books and everything, heroin's not really a big part of it for me, and watching it back, there's scenes when they're at Swanee's and stuff like that, and there's the overdose scene and everything, but and maybe it's because of the sequel, because the sequel is about aging and friendship and stuff like that, and I do feel that the original film it's more about friendship than it is necessarily about drug abuse. They just happen, some of the characters just happen to be drug addicts, you know what I mean? And they happen to be addicted to heroin, and we know that Edinburgh had a real problem with heroin abuse, and as a consequence HIV and AIDS in the 1980s. But certainly by the time the book was released, Edinburgh had kind of I was watching an interview with Irvin Welsh, and he said, by the time the book came out, Edinburgh had kind of got its arms around the heroin problem. It wasn't as big an issue as it was in the 80s when he set the book, and the kind of problem had kind of moved to Glasgow, the big parts of Glasgow, but yeah, I don't, when I think of Trainspotting, when it comes up in my mind, it's some of these great scenes and some of the great dialogue. They would be walking down the stairs in the bar after throwing a glass over, as I'm sure I must have quoted that about 1 million times when I was younger, I think about the soundtrack, all that kind of thing. It's not like the character of heroin, I suppose, in the book is not the first thing that comes to mind when I think about it,
And we haven't even touched upon the countryside scene of it's shite being Scottish. Probably one of the best lines from the film in terms of the quote that Ewan McGregor delivers there, his little lines.
It's shite being Scottish! We're the lowest of the low! The scum of the fucking earth! The most wretched, miserable, servile, pathetic trash that was ever shot into civilization! Some people hate the English, I don't! They're just wankers! We, on the other hand, are colonised by wankers! Can't even find a decent culture to be colonised by. We're ruled by effete arseholes. It's a shite state of affairs to be in, Tommy, and all the fresh air in the world won't make any fucking difference.
Yeah, and the thing is, you sort of, it resonates a bit. I'm not saying that it's shite being Scottish, because I love being Scottish, but you still, in his little kind of rant that he has, you sort of understand where he's coming from, It's never changed my opinion, of being Scottish myself, but I have a bit of empathy. I understand what he's talking about, to a sense, I
think my favourite part of that speech, though, is the last couple of lines, which I will drop in here, which is it's a shite right state of affairs, Tommy, and no amount of fresh air is going to make any bit of fucking difference.
I love as well when they're walking away and Spud's trying to apologise to Tommy and all that. He's like, sorry, man. He's like, sorry. No, I'm sorry. Spud, try to be the peacemaker and all that. I'll just talk a little bit about the legacy of the movie. In 1999, it was ranked 10th in a poll by the BFI, the British Film Institute, so you and I, in its top 100 British films of all time. Total Film magazine named it the 4th greatest British film of all time. The same year, Channel 4 named it the greatest British film of all time. The Observer polled several filmmakers and film critics who voted it the best film in the last 25 years. In 2004, it was voted the best Scottish film of all time by The List. So that's not bad going at all. John Hodge won, Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. It was nominated for 2 British BAFTAs and didn't win either of them. It won the Golden Space Needle for Best Film at the 1996 Seattle International Film Festival. And Hugh McGregor was named Best Actor from the London Film Critics Circle. Oh no, sorry, it says Hodge lost. He was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay in the American. I'm getting mixed up between the BAFTAs and the Oscars. So he was nominated for the Oscar, but he lost to Billy Bob Thornton's Sling Blade, but he won the BAFTA for Best Adapted Screenplay.
So would you say this is the best Scottish film of all time?
I think I probably would have to say it is. I think, for me personally, just because, like I said at the top of the podcast, I think there are things that come into your life at a certain time, whether it's a movie or a book or whatever. So for me personally, it's certainly my favourite Scottish movie of all time. Whether it's the best, then I'd leave that up to more skilled people than I to litigate that.
Okay, well that's it for the Culture Swally. We have no more to review, so thank you very much for listening. I'm probably going to have to agree with you. I think we can look back on films like Gregory's Girl, for example, we've reviewed, and films that we are going to review like Local Hero, films that are just so iconic and so Scottish and part of me growing up, but I don't think anything beats Trainspotting for me, but probably just because I was just that age and at the right time, and it just hit me so well, and it was just so iconic and such a movement and had such an impact in me. Hey, I mean, I grew up at that time, and like I said earlier in the episode, in terms of they wanted to make this kind of the British Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction was, again, my kind of era, my time, my wheelhouse. I don't think it's Tarantino's best film, so I will stand away from that. I think it's great. Probably his third best film, in my opinion. But I will say Trainspotting, probably is the best Scottish film.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me, I think so. I mean, it's... like before that, before Trainspotting and Shallow Grave, I guess you didn't really see a lot of mainstream Scottish movies. We were just off the back of fucking Rob Roy and Braveheart the year before Trainspotting came out. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Rob Roy or Braveheart, but they're looking at a sort of romanticised version of Scottish history and Scottish heroes. Whereas Trainspotting, for all its sort of kind of surrealism and subversion, it's whether it's true to life or not, I don't know, because I've never been in the situation these characters are in, but it certainly feels very true to life. But still, it's not true to life like Sweet 16 is, in that you kind of go away from it feeling a bit kind of, it's a bit of a downer how that movie ended, or Orphans is a bit more surreal in some senses as well, but it's kind of heavy, and Trainspotting, I think it's got a very heavy subject matter, but it carries it very easily and very quickly, and I just hadn't seen a Scottish film like that before when I was a kid.
And how do you feel about the ending in terms of Mark ripping off his mates and fucking off for a new life? He doesn't say where. In the book, it is mentioned it is Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And obviously we know in the sequel that he's been in Amsterdam. I never bumped into him. But how do you feel about that? I mean, I think, he leaves Spud his share, effectively, and as he says, Sick Boy would have done it if he could have thought of it first, or had the opportunity to do it first. I don't know. I'm on the fence about what he did. To be fair, he put up half the money anyway.
Yeah, I know.
so kind of deserves it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think the fact that there's the little sort of, that quick little bit where we learn that he's left Spud his share in the locker, which it sort of absolves him a bit, I think, of ripping off Franco and Sick Boy, because Franco is, as much as he's a good character. He's a good character to watch. He's not like a likeable character. And, because he's so fucking scary. And especially in those last couple of scenes of the film that with, the glassing, etc. And, Sick Boy, he's... Ewan McGregor justifies it exactly as you said. Like he says, well, he'd done the same thing, and actually he says it himself, doesn't he? Sick Boy. He says when he comes back from the toilet, he says, "Oh, you're still here then?" And Renton says, "Well, wouldn't one out in a mate?" And he says, "I know I would." So for me, you think, well, you don't feel so bad about Sick Boy and Renton, but sorry, Sick Boy and Begbie. But what I think is. And it's kind of conveyed better in the prequel books is how hurt Begbie is by the betrayal. You know what I mean? You sort of see it later on in the next movie, but certainly in porno, he's crushed by it. You know what I mean? Like it drives his behaviour, and I think he even says, because he's released from prison near the beginning of porno, and I think he says that part of the reason that he went so mental when he battered the guy and stabbed him and got put in prison is because he was still so fucking angry about what had happened to what Renton had done to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think it's a great ending, because we like Renton all the way through, right? Regardless of what he does, even inadvertently sabotaging Tommy's relationship with Lizzie by stealing the tape. Like the scene with him and Spuds like nick the TV out of the old folks' home. Like fairly reprehensible fucking acts, but you still like him. You know what I mean? You kind of want him to kind of clean up and stop taking drugs and sort himself out and everything. So it is quite an uplifting ending in a way as well. As much as he's ripped off his friends.
And wonderful bookmark of the film in terms of bookend.
Yeah.
At the start you have the choose life speech, and at the end you have the I'm choosing life speech.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I'm going to be just like you.
Yeah.
Although I don't remember seeing that at the cinema and thinking, I live at home, my mum and dad.
I don't have a fucking big television.
Yeah. So shall we put Trainspotting through the categories?
Let's do it. Yes. Okay. What have you got up first?
Archetypal Scottish moment.
All right, what did you go for on this?
I had a couple. There's a few, but there's a phrase that I grew up hearing, and then when I moved away from Glasgow, people didn't say it. And to hear it on screen for the first time, for me, there's something very Scottish about it even now. And you'll think this is mad, but when we're in that surreal scene that we don't really like, and he picks up the tablets at the bottom of the pool and he goes, "Yes, you're a fucking dancer." We used to say that all the time when I was a little kid in Glasgow. "Oh, you're a dancer," But when we moved away when I was like 8, and I just never heard it. People just didn't say it, and people didn't say it in the northeast of Scotland. So to hear that on screen when I was 17, and even now to hear it, I really like it. It just really reminds me of being a kid in Scotland for some reason.
Fair enough. Yeah, I know it's a good. I would go with that. Yeah.
What did you have?
I had Archie Gemmell scoring against Holland in 1978.
Yeah. What a penetrating goal!
What more do you need? That's the archetypal Scottish moment. It's it played out forever in our history, and it's just beautifully used in the film. Phenomenal. Yeah.
Did I read that? Was it Archie McPherson? Did he re-record?
Yeah.
Did he record it again?
Yes,
Archie
he did.
McPherson,
Yeah. Yeah, Archie McPherson. Yes, he did. He re-recorded it because he is down in the cast list for that. Because otherwise, it would have been down as archive footage. But yeah, I'm sure I've heard an interview with him when he said, yeah, he did sit down and re-recorded it, and he didn't quite realise what it was going to be played out against when he re-recorded it. And then when he saw it, he was like, it's okay.
I get paid anyway, so fuck it. I mean, it's a bit of there's 2 awards that are a bit redundant here, but we'll go through them anyway. The James Cosmo Award for being in everything Scottish. James Cosmo, right?
Yeah, it has to be. Although he's got less lines than Dale Winton, yes, it has to be James Cosmo.
Still in it. The Francis Begbie Award for Best Swearing. I mean, there's a lot of good swearing in it.
There's a lot, and I have changed my mind a couple of times
Right.
I had one that was my favourite, and then I've gone with which I think will probably be your choice, which will make it the winner. But my first choice instantly was I love the ending with Keith Allen when they're doing the negotiation, and he's 20, 19, and then Begbie just...
This was a real drag to him. He didn't need to negotiate. I mean, what the fuck were we going to do with it if he didn't buy it? Sell it on the streets? Fuck that.
I'm 19.
Terribly sorry, I can't go to 19.
Oh, fucking 16 then.
Okay. Well, fucking 16 it is then.
I love the use of the punctuation there. Love that.
Yeah.
But then I did change my mind.
I wanted to have the Mikey Forrester Renton exchange about the suppositories where Renton is, for all the good they've done me, I might as well have stuck up my arse. But it's not a very sweary word, arse, in 2021. They probably say arse on Blue Peter these days. Do you know what I mean? I think it has to be Bobby Carlyle walking down the stairs, because he sort of punctuates as he's stepping down the stairs, taking a step, and I don't think, I'm not sure there's been many films that have had more liberal uses of the word cunt, apart from probably Sweet 16, to be honest.
Yeah.
As Trainspotting. So yeah, I think as much as I would like to not be too obvious, I think it still has to be that one.
Well, lassie got glassed and no cunt leaves here till we find out what cunt did it. Who the fuck are you? Yeah!
And that was what I changed it to. That was I was like, it has to be that. Only other option I have, and it is something I still use to this day, is during the cafe scene before the job interview, and Spud and Renton are chatting about it, and Renton says, it's a fucking tightrope, Spud. I still use that to this day when I'm speaking about something. I will say it's a fucking tightrope.
Okay, so the most Taggart appearances goes to Finlay Welsh, who plays the judge who sends down Renton and sends down Spud, and lets Renton off with 6 appearances, going all the way back to Knife Edge in 1986, which is the first appearance of what's his name?
James McPherson.
No, Alex from
Alex Norton.
Alex Norton, on my life. What's wrong with me today?
He's top of the Swally tally.
Top of the Swally tally, yeah. Fucking what a moron. And then the Ewan McGregor Award for most gratuitous nudity. I think it has to go to Ewan McGregor for the scene where he pulls the condom off his dick when he gets chucked out of the room.
Yeah, it definitely has to. I mean, Ewan Bremner gets a mention there because obviously DC has Tadger, but it has to go to Ewan McGregor. Yeah, that scene where he pulls off the condom is, without a doubt, go with that.
The Jake McQuillan Your Tea's Out Award. I had the glassing in the pub in London, but also the mugging of the tourist in the toilets.
I would say there's no question it's the glassing in the bar. When I was rewatching it, despite how many times I've seen this film, and I'm thinking about awards, I did have down the mugging of the American tourist. And then we got to the glassing scene. And as soon as they sat down in that pub and were watching it, and Sleeper are playing, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, I remember what's coming next. That's and I can hardly watch that scene. When he just glasses him, it's horrific.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah.
So that has to be the most violent scene without a doubt.
And then last but not least, and it's a really hard one, but what's the best scene in the film?
Well, second to last, we've still got another award, haven't we? Who won the movie for the Sean Connery who got to go and fight the Pumpkin. But we'll go with last best scene. This is a hard one, and I changed my mind so many times. I love the scene of Renton's withdrawal because it is so iconic and it is so visceral. Most of Begbie's scenes. But you know what? I'm going to give it to, and it's the scene that made me laugh the most when I rewatched this. And it's when Renton and Sick Boy are watching Tommy and Lizzie's porn video. And it is just the look on their faces that they're just so nonplussed, couldn't care, watching their two friends have sex. It made me laugh so much watching it this time. I'm not saying that is the best scene in the film. It was the scene I found the best at this time. Yeah, I think I'm going to give it to Renton's withdrawal scene because there's just so much going on there. Everyone's involved. Everything is happening. It's so iconic and it is so, you feel it. And Ewan McGregor's acting is so good in that. So I know it's an uncomfortable scene to watch, but for me, that's my favourite scene of the film, or best scene.
Okay, for me, my favourite scene is the opening scene with them running down Princess Street and cutting between them running away. You mentioned it before, the introductions to the characters playing football, that the kind of opening choose life monologue, in the everything that goes with it. I just, I think that is so iconic.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Best opening I can think of in a very long time for film. I'm struggling to think of anything better.
And then finally the Sean Connery award. So who won the movie?
Well, what do you think? Who are you going for?
It's Ewan McGregor, right? It has to be.
Now, what are we saying on this? Like, in terms of... Right, it's Ewan McGregor in terms of actor, and Renton wins the film because you could say Danny Boyle because he's gone on to do well and have an Academy Award. If you mention Trainspotting to anyone, they'll say Begbie.
He's certainly the most memorable and certainly quotable character. Yeah.
So for me, Bobby Carlyle as Begbie wins the movie for me. He is the only character that Irvin Welsh has written a spin-off solo book for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of the success of, without Trainspotting, you probably wouldn't have had you maybe would have had porno, you might have had Skag Boys. Irvin Welsh may have continued writing about these characters. But without the success of Begbie, you've got The Blade Artist, and that is a great book. I mean, okay, he's the only Trainspotting spin-off character. Obviously, Irvin Welsh has written other books about spin-off characters like Juice Terry. Yeah, I'd love a Juice Terry film, but I don't think you could have that nowadays. For me, Begbie wins this film.
Yeah, you've convinced me. I think you're right. So I'll give it to you. I did find out that apparently Kelly MacDonald, believe it or not, auditioned for the part of Trinity in The Matrix after being in Trainspotting. And she said, that same interview that I watched on TVAM or whatever, she said that she didn't read the script before she went for the audition. So they were trying to explain it to her. She didn't have a fucking clue. They got her to do some kind of punchy thing on a boxer's bag, that sort of runny punch thing that she said that was rubbish.
So that was like 1999. So the same time that Ewan McGregor was being Obi-Wan, she could have been Trinity in The Matrix.
Yeah. I think she's too short to be Trinity, I think.
Yeah, I think Carrie-Anne Moss did pretty well there.
Well, I could talk about Trainspotting all day, but I guess we have to wrap it up.
Yeah, I feel there's so much we haven't even covered, but we can leave that for another time. Hey, when we do the sequel, we can dip in more about the rest. Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you very much for bringing this to the foreground.
And happy 25th birthday, Trainspotting. It certainly doesn't feel like 25 years to me since the movie came out. But yeah, I really enjoyed talking about it. But it's your choice for the next episode of The Swally. So what have you got for us?
I think we've been quite heavy recently. We've just had Trainspotting. We've had Sweet 16
Highlander.
Before. We had Highlander. It's all been quite dark and quite heavy. And I think we need a little bit of light relief. And I think we all need a holiday. So I would quite like to take a flight on Air Scotia and look at the mid-90s BBC Scotland sitcom The High Life, starring Alan Cumming and Forbes Masson.
Brilliant. I never watched The High Life when it was on the telly, so...
Did you not? Have you seen it since, or have you ever seen it?
I think I've seen bits of it, but yeah, I've not seen enough. I've not seen a lot of it, to be honest. I've never seen bits and bobs of it, but yeah, no, that's good. I look forward to watching that.
I watched it a lot when it was on. I mean, it only ran for one series, like 7 episodes, if you include the pilot. But yeah, I watched it religiously when it was on. So I'll look forward to hearing your take on it then, if you haven't seen much of it.
Okay, cool.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening, everyone. If you'd like to get in touch with us, follow us on Instagram at Culture Swally Pod, or email us with anything you would like us to review or any stories you'd like us to cover on cultureswally@gmail.com. And you can follow us on Twitter @SwallyPod. And I'd never said this before, but if you listen to us, please rate, review, and subscribe with us on iTunes. It does make a difference, and it would be great if you could do that. So, thank you very much, everyone, and until next time, see you later.
Choose life, Nicky.
Choose life.
Choose life. Choose a job. Choose a career. Choose a family. Choose a fucking big television. Choose washing machines, cars, compact disc players, and electrical tin openers. Choose good health, low cholesterol, and dental insurance. Choose fixed interest mortgage repayments. Choose a starter home. Choose your friends. Choose leisure wear and matching luggage. Choose a 3-piece suite on hire purchase and a range of fucking fabrics. Choose DIY and wondering who the fuck you are on a Sunday morning. Choose sitting on that couch watching mind-numbing, spirit-crushing game shows, stuffing fucking junk food into your mouth. Choose rotting away at the end of it all, pissing your last in a miserable home, nothing more than an embarrassment to the selfish, fucked up brats that you've spawned to replace yourselves. Choose your future, choose life,